Inaz and the Two Unmarriageable Lovers. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 4 books. Book 1. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the real love story of 2 unmarriageable lovers. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 68. A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. After their second court marriage and celebrating their new Christian wedding, Joseph and Inaz returned to the church as husband and wife. Nonetheless, for her safety, the apostate girl continued to live in the well-protected Alexander residence, and her brave Ethiopian husband in the International Students' Hostel. Meanwhile, the newly wedded lovers are waiting for the UN office to forward the file of the refugee apostate girl Inaz Ahmed Silla to a Western country for resettlement. Their first Sunday in the church went peacefully without any incident. They had been welcomed by the pastor and other elders, and many loving Christian brothers and sisters shook hands with them. However, the Sudanese Christian female spy Mary Akal reported their return to her Muslim pimp and rapist, and the ignominious Khalid passed the information to the other Sudanese students in the city of Bombay. Consequently, every Muslim terrorist student knows now where to find the infamous apostate girl Inaz Ahmed Silla and her infidel Christian husband Joseph Abraha. It is on the following Sunday, while the 2 newly remarried intimate lovers are emerging out of the church of Bandra, their way has been blocked by an elderly man. The man came as a wolf in sheep clothing. On that particular Sunday afternoon, the handsome groom Joseph is planning to take his beautiful bride Inaz for a lunch at the church gate area in a restaurant called Ferry, and then for spending time together at their favorite spot among the Indian lovers and the newly wedded couples in the seashore of the Arabian Sea. After they had spent a wonderful time together, the handsome groom Joseph promised the Alexander family that he would return his lovely bride to her protective custody in their residence in the Kalina area. But just at the church of Bandra's outside gate, a man came and fell on his knees in front of them and began to take sand from the ground and cover his head with dust. He is dressed up in white shirt and black trousers and holding a prayer rosary in his right hand. At first, the lovers have thought the man is either a dangerous lunatic or someone who is out of his mind. However, suddenly Inaz stood still and held the hand of Joseph. Her strong grip has alarmed her husband. The madman is shouting words in Arabic that only a person who speaks that language can understand. Joseph used his other hand and held Inaz around her waist. He then tried to take her away from the crazy man. But Inaz has not moved an inch forward, as if her feet are rooted in the ground and her entire body is paralyzed. She began to perspire from head to toe and her heart's beat increased by the second. Then in a faint voice, she whispered in the ear of her husband and informed him that the man is her Muslim father. Her Ethiopian husband responded in a low voice and assured her that he is not going to allow him to harm her. At the same time, a huge gathering of other Christians has created a semicircle around the 2 lovers and the madman who is blocking their way. Everyone thought the man is a lunatic person except Mary Akal, her Muslim boyfriend, and Inaz. On that Sunday, Mr. Ahmed Silla was brought to the church by the despicable Khalid, the cousin of Tariq. The arrogant man refused to enter the Christian church hall because he believed entering such a place of worship of the infidels would defile him as a good Muslim man and bring the curse of Allah and his blessed Prophet Muhammad to his Arab family. Therefore, he waited outside until his daughter and her infidel husband came out. He might have assaulted his daughter and attempted to kill her if he has not seen the big number of the infidels and the armed Indian policemen guarding the church against the possible Muslim terrorist attacks within and without. The terrorist father scared that he might be shot and killed before he could perform his honor killing on his accursed apostate and adulterous daughter. Khalid also told him not to try to attack his evil daughter while she is surrounded by those filthy pagans. He specifically warned him about the armed bodyguards of the Alexander family who are protecting her as well. "If I am still your father," Mr. Ahmed Sulla shouted in a loud voice, "rebuke Satan and come with me. I am ready to forgive you and accept you as my beloved and only daughter-in-law." He spoke those words in Arabic. So, no one understood him except his daughter and the one who brought him there. Mary Akal can hardly understand Arabic. She can speak broken Arabic, called the Arabic language of Juba City. Only Sudanese from South Sudan can understand that funny Arabic language. "If you want me to call you my father, you have to accept me as I am now and also accept Joseph Abraha as my lawful Christian husband," Inaz replied with a wavering voice. She has to force the words out of her mouth. She expected her father to attack her as soon as he saw her. But his strange behavior so far has puzzled her. He had never before fallen in front of her and begged her to accept his request. He used to roar like an angry beast and assault her whenever she did something he considered a challenge to his authority. Many times, as a child girl, she urinated on her underwear when he tied her up with ropes and cruelly beat her with a big stick or long whip. Some of the scars of those brutal beatings are still there in the hidden parts of her body. She can still recollect the great fear and dread that he filled her heart with when he viciously attacked her and almost killed her in Pune City and Khartoum City. Throughout her childhood and adulthood, he used to tie her up with ropes and flog her like an animal. He always, like a cruel master, punished her as his female slave and not a daughter. But today, the man who is kneeling on his knees and crying and throwing dust on his head in front of her eyes is not like the father she grew up under his brutality and tyranny. "I can accept you as the Muslim daughter whom I reared with love and care. The girl for whose medical education I spent thousands of dollars, and I am still prepared to spend everything I have for her. If you still have prepared to spend on my study, you wouldn't have withdrawn your financial support to me and canceled my admission at the medical college. I had done that for your good. I could not tolerate seeing my only female child, who is the apple of my eye, going astray from the right path of Islam because of an infatuation with a handsome Ethiopian Christian boy. Because of your satanic lust toward the beauty of this uncircumcised infidel Habashi boy who looks like a woman, and I heard he is a gay who practices sodomy with other men, you have become an apostate Muslim and infidel Christian girl. In the past, you went against the will of your parents and ran away from the apartment of your handsome Arab husband Osama because you coveted the wealth of an ugly Sudanese Karabi boy who looks like a black crow. And today you have repeated the same mistake and did even greater abominable sins of apostasy and adultery because of your mad love for a beautiful boy. I haven't become a Christian girl because I have fallen in love with Joseph. I have become a Christian girl when I discovered that Islam is a disgusting misogynistic religion. I left Islam because of the evil teachings of the so-called infallible prophet of God Muhammad. His teachings are exhibiting hatred, mistrust, and mistreatment of women. Because of these anti-feminine teachings, I had been abused by you from childhood. Even when I became an adult girl, still Islam allowed you to control me like your slave girl and not a daughter. You had tried to kill me twice because I had fallen in love with Tariq. Because of Islam, you had treated the fur boy Tariq as an inferior black slave. And because you wanted to stop my apostasy from Islam and my conversion to Christianity and to separate me from my Christian husband, you had contracted me in marriage without my knowledge and consent to the same boy whom you used to consider dirtier than your trash and called him on his face the ugly black crow. For that reason, you had prevented me from marrying my African lover Tariq and gave me in marriage to my Arab cousin Osama. That dirty gay Osama treated me as his maidservant and not as his wife and sold me as an unpaid prostitute through gambling to 7 of his evil Saudi men. I had been raped by those wicked Arabs inside my bedroom and with the knowledge and agreement of my first husband Osama. When I ran away from him in Saudi Arabia and came to Sudan, you and my mother had beaten me and locked me in a dark room like a dungeon and treated me like a dangerous female prisoner. I have known nothing good from you except abuse and torture. You had never treated me as a daughter, but as your female slave. I have never found someone to love me and believe in me except my good Christian husband Joseph. Every Sudanese boy and girl in the city called me a dirty prostitute and infidel apostate and treated me as their bitter enemy. Through the Sudanese embassy and the corrupt Muslim police, they all conspired against me and kidnapped me, and tried twice to deport me to Sudan. Therefore, if you accept my conversion to Christianity, my Christian husband Joseph, and his baby in my womb, then I can love you and treat you as my father again. I can never ever accept you as my daughter as long as you are an apostate girl from Islam. Also, I cannot accept an uncircumcised infidel Christian man as my son-in-law, and I cannot accept a bastard child as my grandson. From today, you are no more my daughter Inaz. I disowned you and cursed you in your face. You are a dirty infidel and apostate woman. May the curses of Allah and his infallible prophet Muhammad and all Muslims be on you and on your filthy infidel pig. I have also cursed the haram child in your womb. I am stopping from you all my blessings as a Muslim father and the blessings of your Arab mother. You have exited out of the Muhammadan community. The shedding of your unholy blood is halal permissible for every Muslim and Muslimah, including your father and your mother. I will not leave this accursed land of the infidel Christians and the Hindus idol worshippers until you have been slain by a Muslim man or a Muslimah woman for your apostasy from Islam and also your adultery with an uncircumcised infidel pig. The so-called cursed apostate and adulterous Sudanese girl Inaz has ignored those curses and life threats and asked her handsome Christian husband to take her away from her ruthless and dangerous Muslim father. The brave Ethiopian husband Joseph immediately led the way and held his beautiful Sudanese wife by her hand. He stopped a taxi driver and told him to take them to the Bandra local train station. Chapter 69. The Cowardly Terrorist Attack. The mentally emancipated apostate girl Inaz left the man who ruled her life without compassion and brutalized and tortured her for any choice she made without his knowledge and consent. He is a tyrant rather than a father to her. For the first time, she saw him for what he is, a defeated man. She did not know that he had not attacked her and tried to kill her because he had become frightened by the armed security guards and other Christians. He scared that he might be shot dead by the armed Indian guards or outnumbered by the infidel Christians and get stoned to death. For that reason, Inaz has been puzzled by her father's strange behaviors. He always used his hands to beat her up and his legs to trample her under his feet. Why did he refrain from attacking her? Why did he fall on his knees and begged her to forsake her apostasy and Christian husband? Inaz could not find answers to her questions. Whatever led him to do what he had done has not bothered her. What has troubled her heart is whether she is going to meet him again in her life or not. She wishes her road will never cross his road again. For the liberated Muslim girl Inaz, who became a born-again Christian girl, her handsome Ethiopian husband Joseph and their baby in her womb are her life, her future, and her happiness. Sudan, the Sudanese Muslims, her Arab tribe, her proud parents, her ex-African boyfriend, and her former religion of Islam were a living hell for her. But her handsome Christian husband is the angel of light who rescued her life and took her out of darkness and introduced her to the Lord Jesus and to his new fountain of love and his paradise. He liberated her from the evil misogynistic teachings of Muhammad and introduced her to the glorious gospel of Christ. That Sunday, the handsome groom Joseph decided to make it the happiest day in his beloved bride's life because for the first time she stood against her cruel father and confronted him with all the evil deeds he did to her. It is the day on which once and for all she achieved her liberty and became a free girl. She is like a bird freed from its cage and allowed to soar in the sky of freedom. She is no more a docile female slave in the hands of a tyrant father. She made her stand clear, and she is no longer acquiescent to his evil demands. 2 times he chose her husband. The first husband is her cousin, the gay and pimp, the so-called handsome and highly educated Arab man Osama, and the second husband is her selfish former African boyfriend Tariq, who is called by her arrogant parents the ugly black Sudanese crow. Inaz translated into English to her Ethiopian husband every word her wicked daddy had said to her and every sentence she spoke to him in Arabic. The mentally emancipated daughter and her handsome husband ate their lunch in a fancy restaurant called Ferry in the Churchgate area. Then, they went to a beautiful hotel and had their dessert of ice cream. From the Ambassador Hotel, the lovers traveled by bus to the Gateway of India. It is the first time, the lovers decided to visit the island of Elephanta Caves. They traveled by cruise ship and enjoyed seeing the historical caves on that wonderful Elephanta Island. They took many photos of the caves and themselves. Upon their return, the lovers traveled by a direct bus from the Gateway of India to the Hanging Gardens at the Malabar Hill. From the height of the hill, the two intimate lovers can see below them the Arabian Sea decorated by the thousands of lights of the beautiful Queen Necklace. It is there, in that paradise-like place in the past, the two lovers had opened their hearts to each other and for the first time confessed their deep love. They made their everlasting vow of love, sealed it with their lips, and endorsed it with their passionate hugs. From that day onwards, no power or authority could separate them from each other. Their genuine love has been united inside the womb of Inaz and one day is going to come out in human flesh and live and walk among them and complete their joy and happiness. Finally, the happy lovers ended their sightseeing at their favorite spot where their first kiss was born. That first kiss did not remain an orphan, but they nourished and cherished it, and it gave birth to hundreds of kisses until it became flesh and bones in the womb of Inaz. The beautiful wife was 3 months pregnant when she broke the fetters and shackles of her tyrant father from her hands and feet. She said to her Christian husband, she wishes to give birth to a handsome son like his father, but Joseph wants to have a beautiful daughter as her lovely mother. But only God knows the gender of the baby in her womb. Surrounded by hundreds of Indian lovers, the extremely handsome Ethiopian lover Joseph and his lovely Sudanese girlfriend Inaz, at last, have reached the summit of their joyful day. Their lips are locked in strong and passionate kissing. They continued to suck the honey from each other's sweet lips and drink from the nectar of their eternal fountain of love. They know it is God who gave them victory over all their adversaries. They can feel His presence surrounding them from all directions, and His mighty angels are guarding them. The lovers may have remained forever in that divine presence. All of a sudden, that quiet and wonderful place was struck by a powerful tsunami of terror. The lovers began to hear other lovers shouting and seeing them fleeing in terror. Many lovers have been torn apart. Some of them managed to stand up and flee away, leaving behind him or her his beloved or her lover. Joseph and Inaz also stood up but remained standing in their place. They do not know what has caused such chaos and terror. They know the place is guarded by Indian police officers all the time. Unfortunately, some of those cops have also run for their lives. Joseph took hold of his beloved's left hand and was about to rush her out of the place of terror. But they are too late. They have delayed their escape for so long. Their way is blocked by an angry terrorist holding a big rod in one hand and a dagger in his other hand. He is running towards them as the angel of death who has come to take their spirits and turn them into corpses. The lovers have the raging waves behind them and the fully armed terrorist in front of them. They have either to face the terrible terrorist with their empty hands or turn around and throw themselves in the raging waves of the Arabian Sea. They have no other avenue of escape. They have to choose between either death through stabbing or drowning in the sea. None of them knows swimming. Inaz shouted to Joseph and told him they must hold each other, jump in the water, and die through drowning. The lovely Sudanese bride preferred to die in the arms of her handsome Christian groom. She wanted both of them to die just like the Indian lover Paulo and his Portuguese girlfriend Dona, who preferred to kill themselves than be separated from each other. Dona and Paulo were lovers separated by their caste and nationality, and with no other option left, they decided to end their lives by jumping off the cliff. Today, a beautiful statue called Dona Paulo on the rock is dedicated to them, which showed them standing together as eternal lovers. It is a beautiful golden sandy beach and tourist destination in the suburbs of Panaji, Goa City, in India. Nevertheless, the handsome lion of Ethiopia refused his beautiful Sudanese wife's suggestion and determined to face the armed terrorist man with his bare hands. Like the two archangels, Lucifer and Michael, the two men collided in a deadly fight. It is like a Muslim soldier armed to the teeth attacking an unarmed, non-combatant young Christian man. The terrorist man hit Joseph 3 times with his big stick. 2 hits fell on his shoulders, and the third strike was aimed at the head. Joseph used his hand and prevented the terrorist man from hitting his head. If that powerful strike fell on his head, the Lion of Judah would have fallen down, and the terrorist of Islam would have used his dagger and stabbed him to death. Meanwhile, the apostate girl Inaz is shouting for help, but no one has come to rescue her and save her husband. By then, all the other lovers have already crossed the wide street and standing at a stone throw distance and watching in horror the deadly fight. Even the Indian policemen are keeping themselves at a safe distance and watching the horrific battle. None of them is carrying a firearm. They are only holding their batons. Therefore, they are all scared to come close to the armed terrorist man who is holding in one hand a dagger as big as a half-sword and in his other hand a big stick. Somehow, Joseph managed to snatch the rod from the terrorist's hand. The terrorist man acted quickly and kicked the rod from Joseph's hand. Now the two men are facing each other and reaching the end of their deadly fight. All the frightened Indian lovers concluded that the terrorist is going to run Joseph down with his half-sword and slaughter him. At that critical moment, the brave Sudanese girl Inaz ran and stood in front of her wounded Ethiopian lover. She shouted to the terrorist and invited him to kill her first. The terrorist responded swiftly and rushed towards his apostate daughter and about to insert his dagger in her heart. But in a twinkle of an eye, he was taken by surprise when he saw Joseph flying like an eagle above the head of his apostate daughter and landing on his head. His feet hit him on his face and sent him flat on the ground. Although he fell down, the terrorist stood up quickly and made another attempt to kill his only daughter. Joseph told him, "Only over my dead body you can reach my wife Inaz." The terrorist made his final move and stabbed Joseph in his stomach. The blood gushed like red liquid out of Joseph's body. Nonetheless, Joseph managed to hold the terrorist and hit his body with many powerful blows. The terrorist fell down like a camel that has been hit by an axe on its head. The dagger fell off his hand. 3 Indian policemen responded swiftly and crossed the street, arrived at the crime scene, used their batons, and battered the already knocked down Muslim terrorist and subdued him. The Indian lovers began to clap their hands and shout with their mouths. They are shouting words of appreciation for the great victory. They know a brave and handsome hero has defeated a terrorist tyrant and saved the life of his beautiful heroine from the villain. They saw such an ending many times in the Bollywood movies, but for the first time, they have witnessed it taking place in real life. Chapter 70. The Crow and the Owl. The proud and arrogant Sudanese lawyer, Mr. Ahmed Salah, had never anticipated a day would come in his life in which his daughter Inaz would challenge his authority or dare to answer him back. He ruled her with an iron fist from childhood and turned her into a female robot that he could control with remote control. She had long ago been terrified into complete intellectual surrender to his tyrannical and absolute authority. He always harshly punished her for whatever mistake she made. Inaz herself would never have defied her dangerous father if she had not undergone intellectual and spiritual awakening. It is her new Ethiopian lover Joseph Abraha who changed her thinking and understanding of life and herself. And it is Christ and Christianity which liberated her spiritually. The Christian teachings about women set her free from the misogynistic teachings of Islam. In fact, a long time ago, before her terrorist father smuggled himself into India, Inaz was born again, and therefore, she became a new creature. Accordingly, that particular Sunday, the tyrant father came face to face with a new girl. Not his former daughter whom he used to frighten her to death. Many times, his coarse voice, which was like that of a scary ogre, made her urinate inside her underwear. As we have already mentioned, the proud man did not attack his daughter at the church because Khalid and Mary told him there would be armed security guards. He also was informed by them that his daughter is living in a house guarded with armed guards who have machine guns. Whenever she stepped out, she would be accompanied by those armed bodyguards of the Alexander family. Therefore, the coward man played that drama of a heartbroken father and begged his daughter on his knees to rebuke Satan, renounce her abominable deeds of converting to Christianity and marrying an infidel man. Inaz did not only refuse to obey him, but rebuked him for the evils he had done to her in the past. She also told him he had no right to marry her to her former lover Tariq without her knowledge and consent. A Muslim girl can never dare to say something like that to her father and expects to survive for a few minutes. And finally, Inaz said to him, if he wanted her to call him her father, he should accept her conversion to Christianity, her marriage to her Christian husband, and the baby she is carrying in her womb. If Inaz said those words to her father when she was in Sudan, he would have opened her stomach with his knife and take the infant out of her womb and dash its head to the wall. If there was ever a need for an honor killing, this was it. Nonetheless, the cunning lawyer knew it was not the right place to carry the commandment of his prophet on his apostate daughter. Therefore, he suppressed his indignation and decided to wait for the right time and right place. That day, the wicked Khalid and the adulterous Mary followed Joseph and Inaz from place to place until they discovered their romantic spot. When the two intimate lovers went to have their lunch at the Ferry Restaurant and Ambassador Hotel, like an ugly crow and his adulterous owl, the evil spies stood outside and waited until Joseph and Inaz came out. Then they followed their bus in a taxi until they reached the Taj Mahal Hotel. They did not travel with their lovers to Elephanta Caves Island. They sat at the Gate of India until the lovers returned in a cruise ship. Likewise, they followed the lovers in another taxi until the Hanging Gardens. They sat in a small restaurant carefully watching the exit. Then they followed the lovers to the Queen Necklace Beach. The ugly crow and his adulterous owl pretended to be lovers when in reality they are like an evil master and his female sex slave. After that, the despicable Khalid phoned the biological father of Inaz and gave him the address of the place where he could find his apostate and adulterous daughter without her Indian armed bodyguards. By that time, the extremely angry father had already returned to the Islamic open door. Immediately, he took a taxi and traveled to the Kalaba area. He found a Muslim shopkeeper and requested him to supply him with an assault rifle and a revolver. He promised to pay him whatever price he would ask for. The Muslim man himself is a dangerous terrorist and Ganda. He said he could supply him with white weapons. For firearms, he would need at least a couple of days to arrange them. The Sudanese terrorist man knew that was the only day and time he could attack his apostate daughter and her infidel Christian husband without being hindered or be killed by those armed guards of the Alexander family. Therefore, the extremely outraged father paid the money and received the big, sharp dagger and the huge stick from the Indian Muslim terrorist. Those deadly weapons were handed over to him in a wooden box. After that, the tyrant knelt down on his knees and prostrated, and offered 2 rakat of prayer to his Allah and asked him to grant him victory and the Shahada. Before a Muslim terrorist goes for a battle against his enemies or sends in a suicidal mission, he is expected to ask his Allah to grant him the Shahada, which is the Islamic martyrdom. Also, Islam teaches that if a Muslim mujahid dies as a martyr, he will go to paradise and be wedded with the 72 virgins who are called the Huris. Therefore, on that fateful Sunday, the tyrant father asked his God Allah to give him victory by killing his apostate daughter and her infidel husband, and also to grant him martyrdom by being killed by the Indian police. He did not want to be arrested and tortured by the Hindu police interrogators and spend the rest of his life behind bars in the filthy Indian prison. Upon his arrival, his 2 evil spies, the despicable crow and his ugly owl, pointed to him the place where his Muslim apostate daughter and her unclean Ethiopian Christian husband are sitting among other Indian adulterous lovers while they are hugging and kissing each other. He quickly opened his box and took out the rod and dagger and ran towards them. He was shouting Allah Akbar while running towards his unaware and unarmed victims. His Islamic shouts of war had frightened the peaceful and innocent young lovers and caused them to flee in terror. They all concluded that their romantic place was under a deadly terrorist attack. Even the Indian police constables of Bombay thought that some Muslim terrorists were carrying out another bloody terrorist attack on the city. This time, the Muslim terrorists had chosen a soft target where innocent young Indian girls were enjoying their time with their lovers. Every police constable fled for his life at the sight of a deranged man brandishing a half-sword in his left hand and a big stick in his right hand, making his way towards him. They thought the terrorist is having an explosive belt fastened around his chest and back. The dangerous terrorist entered the romantic place from one end, and when he reached the opposite end, he had emptied out the whole place. Hundreds of lovers took flight from his deadly attack. They fled and headed for the other side of the wide seashore street. From a safe distance, they watched in horror the deadly battle between the Prince of Darkness and the Angel of Light. They expected the armed Lucifer would kill the handsome, unarmed lover and his innocent, beloved girlfriend. To their astonishment, the unarmed, handsome lover had defeated the fully armed, dangerous terrorist tyrant and saved the life of his beautiful girlfriend from the coward villain. Chapter 71. The two police reports of Bombay and New Delhi. The Indian Mary Alexander is the first among the good Christian family members to hear the sad news. The Sudanese Mary Akal phoned her and informed her that the apostate girl Inaz has been attacked by her Muslim father at the seashore of the Marine Drive. Her Christian husband Joseph also has been stabbed to death by his angry father-in-law. The despicable Khalid Maman Alajabo has put those words in his female sex slave's mouth and ordered her to call Mary Alexander and pass the disturbing news to her. His aim is to show the Christian family that Allah has destroyed their protective custody and given victory to the Muslim father of the adulterous apostate girl Inaz, whom they thought they could hide her from the judgment of Allah and his infallible prophet Muhammad. That Sunday, Mr. Alexander and his wife are invited by their friends to a wedding celebration in another church. That was why they were not in their church of Bandra when the wolf in sheep's clothing came and fell on his knees and played the drama of the sad father of Inaz. Immediately, Mrs. Mary Alexander took her husband, Mr. Vijay Alexander, outside the reception hall and broke to him the sad news. Her husband has become so much saddened by the disturbing news about Inaz and Joseph. But the first question that came to his mind, how the blacklisted Sudanese father of Inaz entered India. At once, he phoned his friend, the head of the Bombay Criminal Investigation Department, and brought this question to his attention. The head of the Bombay CID is also expressed his shock when he heard that the Sudanese man whom he had placed his name in the blacklist had managed to enter India and performed an honor killing on his apostate Muslim daughter and her Christian husband. He has promised Mr. Vijay Alexander to issue at once an investigation order in this serious matter. Meanwhile, the seriously wounded foreign student Joseph Abraha and his badly battered assailant are rushed in the same ambulance to the Jeslock Hospital at the Malabar Hill area. They are both unconscious. In the meantime, the mind of Inaz has become so much troubled by the brutal attack on her loving husband. She has totally forgotten about the Alexander family. She has no cell phone with her. She wanted to travel in the same ambulance which took her seriously wounded husband and badly battered father, but the police and hospital authority did not allow her. Therefore, she took the address of the hospital and hired a taxicab and followed behind the ambulance. She thought that her wicked father has murdered her lover in front of her eyes. So, she is crying and blaming herself for causing the untimely death of her loving husband. Meanwhile, Mr. Alexander phoned Joseph's cell phone, but no one responded to his call. Therefore, he concluded that Mary Akal's report about his brutal murder is true. No followers of any religion in the whole universe rejoice in evils except some followers of Islam. When the cowardly terrorist attacks happened on September 11th in New York, many Palestinian Muslims rejoiced and celebrated on the streets. Likewise, whenever a terrorist attack took place in a Western country, many Muslims felt happy and some of them wished it would happen again on a large scale and great magnitude. This is exactly what has happened when the 1,400 Sudanese Muslim students at the Bombay University heard about the deadly terrorist attack on the infamous apostate Inaz and her infidel husband Joseph. And what made them exceedingly happy, it has been done by her brave Sudanese Muslim father. They counted that coward terrorist man who attacked unarmed and unprepared lovers a great hero and a new line of jihad. They believe that, if he was already got killed by the Indian police, then he died as a Muslim martyr, and now he is enjoying the 72 virgins in paradise where there are rivers of wine, milk, and honey. They do not need to wait for the next day morning to read about the slaughter in the local newspapers. The despicable crow and his ugly owl have phoned more than 30 of their evil friends and passed the so-called good news to them. And those wicked Muslim terrorists who masqueraded themselves as foreign students, each one of them used his cell phone and informed other 20 Sudanese. Accordingly, when the sun rose again, almost every Sudanese Muslim student heard the so-called glad tidings. Their great expectations about the Muslim father of the despicable apostate girl have become true. When they heard that the great Sudanese hero still alive, some of them began to collect money to appoint a Muslim lawyer to defend him in court. They want to bribe the Muslim lawyer and convince him through a huge amount of money to find some corrupt Muslim doctors, and likewise, through bribes, they must declare Mr. Ahmed Saleh insane, and hence he cannot stand trial. It is the same attitude and same mentality which tried to absolve from culpability the same criminal father in Pune city after they read in the local newspapers that he had slain his adulterous Muslim daughter Inaz in an honor killing. Within 24 hours, the head of the Bombay Criminal Investigation Department ascertained how the blacklisted Sudanese father managed to enter India. The evil Muslim father was revived in the hospital and immediately taken in a police vehicle to the lockup. Upon his arrival, he was taken at once to the interrogation room. Then he was stripped of all his clothes, including his underwear. 3 Hindu police interrogators extracted the truth from him through their harsh third-degree method. They flogged him with heavy rods and slapped him with their rough hands and kicked him with their heavy boots. They also threw boiling hot water on his fully naked body. All that time, the proud and arrogant father is hanging from his feet with ropes fixed to the ceiling. He screamed and begged for mercy, but his words fell on deaf ears. In all that, the wicked terrorist father of the apostate Sudanese girl has not repented of his many evil deeds. After taking his confessions, the Bombay police prepared a long rap sheet of serious charges against him. The most serious of them are illegally smuggling himself in Hindustan through the Indian-Pakistani border and carrying a cowardly terrorist attack against 2 innocent foreign lovers at a beach in Bombay downtown. He also has been charged with the murder attempts of his daughter and his son-in-law. It so happened that the head of the Bombay CID has received at the same time a police report from his counterpart, the Criminal Investigation Department of New Delhi. The police report unearthed the entire plot of the second kidnap and attempt, which aimed at deporting the female foreign student Inaz Ahmed Saleh to Sudan against her wish. They wanted her to be returned to her Muslim country to stand trial for apostasy and put to death. The report revealed that the 6 kidnappers were not New Delhi policemen. They were Muslim terrorists dressed up in police khaki uniforms and fooled the southern Sudanese foreign students and kidnapped the foreign student girl Inaz Ahmed Saleh and the Indian girl Nishita Naga Suresh. 4 of those terrorists had driven Nishita to a farmhouse and brutally raped her, and the other 2 terrorists had taken Inaz to the Indira Gandhi International Airport. The police found a video showing Inaz when the 2 Muslim crooks had brought her inside the New Delhi International Airport until they obtained her boarding card for a direct flight to Khartoum. The video was found from the surveillance cameras of the international airport. However, the New Delhi police could not find an explanation or any piece of evidence to show how Inaz managed to escape from those 2 fake cops and found her way back to Bombay after she had passed through all the police checkups and customs duties. By law, no passenger is allowed to leave the international airport after he received his boarding card. Nevertheless, the New Delhi police found enough incriminating evidence against some top officials in the Sudanese embassy, including the ambassador of Sudan. The evidence included phone communication between those Sudanese diplomats with some Islamic religious leaders and some notorious Muslim terrorists at a big mosque in the Nizamuddin area. Moreover, the air ticket for the forcible transfer of the apostate girl Inaz to Sudan was purchased by a Sudanese male student working towards an engineering degree at the University of New Delhi. That foreign student was arrested and interrogated by the police. He confessed that he had purchased the ticket on behalf and under the direction of the Sudanese ambassador. His bank account revealed he had received an email money transfer directly from the account of the Sudanese embassy. The amount deposited into his account was 3 times more than the actual rate of the air ticket he had bought from a traveling agency under the name of Inaz Ahmed Saleh. Accordingly, the New Delhi police had submitted their report to the Home Ministry and demanded legal action to be taken against those Sudanese diplomats who plotted the kidnap and illegal transfer of the female foreign student, Inaz Ahmed Saleh. After receiving that report, the head of the Bombay CID sent to the Home Ministry his report, which detailed the former kidnap and the illegal transfer attempt of Inaz at the Bombay International Airport. That report also included confessions of 2 Sudanese diplomats. Their admissions also implicated the Sudanese ambassador and some corrupt Muslim policemen in the Bombay police enforcement. Those two foreign suspects and a leader of the Muslim Brotherhood at present are in remand at a Bombay jail awaiting their final trial. Chapter 72. I am no longer citizen of Sudan. Joseph remained in the hospital for 2 weeks before he got discharged. The first week, he spent in a comatose state inside the ICU. His body lost so much blood due to the heavy bleeding from the big cut caused by the dagger stab in his stomach. Inaz has donated the whole blood that the hospital staff needed for saving the life of her beloved husband. She wanted to transfuse more blood to her lover, but the hospital authority refused to take any more blood from her. She is told she can donate whole blood again only after 56 days. The hospital knew the wife could expose herself to imminent danger if any more blood is taken from her body. Nonetheless, Inaz refused to leave Joseph in the hospital and return to her protective custody. She told the Alexander family she rather prefers to get killed in the hospital by those Muslim terrorists than leaves the man who loves her with whole his being and offered his life for her safety and protection. If it were not for her brave husband, she would have been stabbed to death by her evil Muslim father. The long dagger which he was supposed to insert in her heart, her brave husband had stopped it when he became a human shield for her. He sacrificially came between her and her coward father and took the deadly stab in his stomach. During those 14 days, the Alexander family purchased all the medications, covered all the other medical costs, and supplied all the needs of the Abraha family. They also regularly visited Joseph and inquired about his recovery progress. Moreover, on a daily basis, they sent home-cooked meals for Inaz and also for Joseph when he became fit to have outside food. After Joseph's discharge, the Alexander family prevented him from returning to that den of dangerous Muslim terrorists, which euphemistically is called International Students' Hostel. Mr. Alexander gave Inaz and Joseph free accommodation near his main office. His office is located in a building which has 8 apartments. It is guarded by armed guards all the time. The building is one of his many properties in the city of Bombay. Through the help of his police friend in the Criminal Investigation Department, he was able to obtain licensed firearms under the name of Joseph Abraha and Inaz Ahmed Sulla. They are a big revolver for Joseph and a small pistol for Inaz. They have been fully loaded, and the lovers have been authorized by the Bombay police to use them in self-defense if they face any other terrorist attacks. The brave Ethiopian husband has been encouraged by his apostate wife and emboldened by his weapon of self-defense. He determined to return to his medical college and resumed his study. Inaz, however, has been advised by the Alexander family not to venture again and go to that Muslim terrorists-infested area of Bombay downtown. Once bitten, twice shy, the apostate girl accepted the wise advice and remained in the Kalina area. Few days after, Mr. Alexander has been surprised when the postman came to his office and handed over to him a huge envelope addressed to him personally from the United Nations office in New Delhi. The sender is a Muslim woman by the name of Mrs. Salma Muhammad Ahmed. The envelope is carrying the addressee's name, to Mr. Vijay Alexander and no one else. When he opened the envelope, he discovered it has been sent to Inaz Ahmed Sulla and not to him. It has a letter from her female legal representative and also included her brand new Sudanese passport. Mr. Alexander sent his peon and requested him to bring Mrs. Inaz Ahmed Sulla to his office. Since the two intimate lovers' apartment is located above his office, the apostate girl came in less than 5 minutes. Inaz read the big letter loudly in the hearing of Mr. Vijay Alexander. Her husband Joseph happened to be away in his medical college. In the letter, the female legal representative claimed to have personally gone to the Sudanese embassy and acquired the new Sudanese passport of the refugee girl Inaz Ahmed Sulla. She then advised Inaz to use her Sudanese passport and travel to Addis Ababa and live with her Ethiopian husband in his fatherland. She said further that she has sent her refugee certificate to 3 Western countries, namely Canada, Australia, and the United States of America. And all 3 foreign countries refused to grant her resettlement because she does not meet the requirements for such privileges. According to them, the Sudanese refugee Inaz Ahmed Salah has a second option which is not available for other foreign student refugees from the south of Sudan. She can travel with her foreign husband to his country Ethiopia, or she can live temporarily in India as a refugee girl as long as her husband is studying medicine at the University of Bombay. Therefore, her refugee status in India remains valid, and she can live in the country without the need for a legal permit from the police of Bombay. After reading the message of her Muslim female legal representative, the apostate girl Inaz asked Mr. Vijay Alexander to give her a red ink pen. Without knowing what she is going to do with it, the good man handed over the pen to her. He was astonished when he saw her open her new passport and began to make a big red X shape canceling each page until she reached the last page. Then she wrote on its first page in capital letters, "I am no longer a Sudanese citizen. I am now the citizen of the world. I do not want to be a citizen of a criminal state which is ruled by a bunch of thugs and Muslim terrorists." She then gave the passport to Mr. Alexander and requested him to read what she had written. After reading her words, the good man's astonishment has changed into great admiration. He is so moved by her courage and daring action. After that, she asked him to mail her cancelled new Sudanese passport to the same female legal representative who sent it to him from the UN office in New Delhi. Now the big question, how that Mrs. Salma Muhammad Ahmed had come to know that the Muslim apostate girl Inaz Ahmed Salah is living in the residence of Mr. Vijay Alexander, and who gave her his name and address. There are three possibilities. The first possibility is that the officials of the Sudanese embassy through their student spies in Bombay came to know about the name and address of the rich Indian Christian man who is keeping in his guarded residence the apostate Muslim girl, and they passed that information to her female representative in the UN office, along with her new Sudanese passport. The second possibility, which is a high probability, is that the despicable Khalid had written and sent an anonymous letter to the UN office in New Delhi and disclosed the address of the rich Christian man and the hiding place of the infamous apostate Sudanese girl Inaz Ahmed Salah. The third possibility, which is unlikely, the Muslim legal representative of the UN office herself has her own spies in either the police of New Delhi or the police of Bombay who passed such classified personal information to her.